Testing, testing. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, testing. Testing, testing. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me at the back? All good. All right, guys, let's start. Whoever else is still on their way can find a seat. There are some chairs up there. I'm so glad at the very first event, everybody started to fill up at the top. And tonight, the third event, everybody fills up at the bottom and it's empty at the top. So that's great. So we have enough there. If you maybe have a chair somewhere in the middle, maybe just, Brenda, sorry. Maybe just close that gap there so it's easier for individuals to find the chairs at the end. We are going to get going. Good evening, everybody. Hello. Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. To everybody online live streaming, hello and welcome to you too. I want to start off by saying we had 449 registrations for this evening. Please give yourself a massive hand. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to start off with some house rules, and then I'll introduce myself, I'll introduce the agenda, and we'll get going. So usually Mark Sham, whose event this is doing what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to try and remember everything he said in the past and not use as many F words as he usually does, even though we love him. So bathrooms right there, bar and drinks there. I hope everybody got something to eat and drink. It will be there post the engagement, so please go back in there as well. In terms of those who came with a car and Uber, somewhere during this evening, that bottom gate closes. So those of you who've been here before will know this. Please exit at the top, so my right, your left-hand side. Wamly team, did I forget a house rule? I don't see the team. Did I forget anything? We're good. Fantastic. My name is Frans de Wet. I am the proud founder and the CEO of a company called Wamly. Can I see any Wamly clients? Yes. Fantastic. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Who's been to this event 3 times? Hands up. Keep your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I've got 5 prizes. Not 7, I've got 5. So, first question, what was the theme of the first event? Now we're going to see if they were here, right? It was not the art of talent acquisition. Solving the people puzzle. Stian, can we get a bottle of wine there? Congratulations, Stian. Yes. All right, theme of the second event. Not Stian again. Theme of the second event? Yes? The art of talent acquisition. Fantastic. Well done. Can we get a bottle of wine here, Tando? Thank you so much. Congratulations. The rest of the prizes I will be handing out during the evening, okay, because there's too many left for the amount of wine that we've got. So I'll be doing that. It's really important for us as an organization. Clients often ask me, people often ask me, why do you do this? You don't charge anything for it. Why host these events? And it's extremely important for us to add value. I often feel like the HR community doesn't get enough value. And so as part of who we are as a business, we want to give back. If you follow us, if you follow me, you'll often hear me say this. It's all about giving back and it's uplifting this community. And evenings like this, where we see registrations skyrocket over 400, we have people online. I just saw a LinkedIn post from a lady saying, if I can't make it, I'll stream it. So thank you for that comment. It's about this community. And Mark has a story, which I'm not going to repeat, around post-COVID. We crave intimacy, we crave relationships, we crave being together, and this is exactly what tonight is about. Tonight is a networking opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to give back value. I'm extremely excited about what we're going to be sharing with you. Every time we do a Wamly event, there is a different theme. So tonight, it's not me on the stage for 90 minutes like the previous one, but I'm actually joined by guests, and I'll get into that topic in a second. So from an agenda perspective, I just did the welcome. So if you're not yet feeling welcome, welcome. It's great to see all of you here. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's a Wednesday evening. It's after work. We're tired. We have kids. We have spouses. Thank you, my wife, for being here again the third time. Thank you for being here. So I really hope you feel welcome. If you at any point in the evening have any questions, just look for anybody with this logo, and we will gladly assist you. And then we're going to work through a case study. Tonight is about a case study. And as we progress during this evening, I'll be sharing more about that. But I'm not alone. I am joined by 3 guests this evening, which I will introduce in a second. It's going to be a bit of a couch interview podcast vibes here on stage. We'll be doing that. And then, of course, like always, a very nice question and answer. So we've got 3 mics roaming around. We absolutely encourage you to participate, ask questions. The previous event, the Q&A, was almost as long as the keynote, and we love that. But we aim to finish at about 8 o'clock here, and then there is no time for you to leave. The venue will close much later, so mingle, network, meet someone new, go and introduce yourself, come speak to any of us. We really encourage that. So let's get going. I already mentioned who I am. I will in a second introduce the rest of the speakers. Thank you guys for coming. You're so welcome. Grab a seat. Just one thing about us and about me. If you don't know, Wamly is a one-way video interview software provider. We were first to Africa. 2018, I started this business with one purpose, and that is to optimize the way we fill vacancies by focusing on the interview. A bit about that later in the journey. But what I do want to mention is this year we won Tech Startup of the Year in South Africa 2023. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I mention that because we would be absolutely nothing without our incredible clients. So for those of you in the audience who have been following our journey, for our clients in the audience and online, thank you so much for making that possible, and we promise to continue to add value. For the rest of the speakers, I have Kyle, JK, and Joel here. Kyle is going to be speaking about his marketing background. I recently did a podcast, which is another channel you can follow us on, with a very interesting gentleman where we spoke about the similarities between marketing and hiring. And so when Kyle joins me on stage, we're going to touch into that, because that is going to form part of the piece of the conversation, which is how do we attract our talent? Extremely excited about that. Then Joel will be joining me, where we are going to be talking about screening. Joel is passionate about all things bots, ChatGPT, working with the latest technology. Who is, by the way, dabbling into ChatGPT at the moment? Yes? Okay. Maybe a better question, who's on the premium? Okay, some hands, yes. Fascinating. We will deep dive into that and how we can actually utilize that in screening. And then I'll be talking about interviewing and testing. And then at the end, we have JK DeToy from the Good People Data Company. And JK is going to be sharing incredible tech with you around how to verify and check your candidates. So that's a bit of an intro. We will get into more detail, but let me set the scene, because I think that's really important. Why this topic? Where are we going with it? And where does it come from? So I had the privilege to go to Paris 3 weeks ago. And I attended one of the world's largest tech conferences. It's called VivaTech. Has anybody heard of VivaTech? Yeah? Yes, there's a hand right there. 150,000 people, 4,000 exhibition stands, exhibitors, representing 182 countries over 5 days. And yes, Elon Musk was a keynote speaker. Okay? He did mention that he is not evil, so I just want to reassure you. I yelled in Afrikaans, "Hallo Elon, hoe gaan dit?" He didn't blink. Okay, so I think he's let go of the Afrikaans. But it was a fascinating week to see tech from every industry. I saw a drone that can fly humans. I saw an Audi that does not have a steering wheel, a real Audi. I saw edtech, medtech, fintech, art illuminating every 10 seconds, different pictures in holograms. It was absolutely phenomenal. Guess what I did not see? Here's a prize. HR Tech, Mr. Gas, can we get a bottle of wine? I did not. We didn't practice that. I didn't see a single stand on HR Tech. What a disappointment. The world's global technology exhibitors being there, and there wasn't a single HR Tech apart from a massive job board organization from the States. Job board. And that got me thinking, that got me super curious. During that whole week, Marnus and I were Googling, trying to find, well, what's going on in the world of HR tech? Surely there should be technology in terms of what's happening in HR. And I'm not saying because it wasn't there that there isn't. It was interesting for me to see that there was no real hoo-ha around HR tech at this conference. And so If we then circle back to typical technology in the hiring landscape, I'm assuming that the majority of you in the audience and online are using either one or a combination of these methods, mechanisms to make a hire, to fill a vacancy. So it's either all manual, and if you're going to be that vulnerable, please raise your hand if your entire process is manual at the moment. There's vulnerable. Can we get a bottle of wine here, Tando? Thank you for sharing. Condolences. Okay, well done. Yes. Secondly, we are very familiar, all of us, with job boards. Okay? They've been around for many, many years. Job boards, agencies, referral programs. This is quite cool. In our previous event, I was sharing the top 10 global trends in talent acquisition, and the referral program is something that's really standing out in the literature at the moment. And if you think about the skills shortage, if you think about everything we spoke about in the previous event, the referral program, I guess, is a very good trusted one. It's just not scalable. Headhunting, applicant tracking systems, human resource information systems, and then at times you might be hiring completely random. Okay, we all know, let's not mention names at the moment, of what's happening at some of the tertiary institutions and certain individuals having to say sorry for certain people going to certain programs. That might be an example of random. But also, I just have this great cousin, I know him, I trust him, or this person looks like their hiring manager. But do you agree with me, audience, that this kind of sums up typically how we fill vacancies? Yeah? Is there one I missed? Like one you're going, wait, Fran, we're doing this and it's not on the slide. Social media? Yeah? Yeah, we could potentially add social media, absolutely. So that then takes me to one of my favorite slides. And everywhere I speak, I bring this back up. So if you've seen this, you're going to see it again. But I think it's super important because the conditioning around hiring, the more we demo, the more we engage with clients. I've probably done over 500 demos in the last 3 years. We turned 3 on the 3rd of July. This story remains the same. And let me take you through it again. There's a call for a position in your organization. You need to fill a vacancy. From there, HR, hopefully there's a job profile with job analysis. Yes, we all love job profiling, right? Yeah. Hopefully that then leads to a job ad. That job ad goes to different sites, whether that's manually or through your ATS. Applicants see the ad, they respond. CVs start coming in either into a mailbox or into the ATS. I recently spoke a couple of months ago to someone who said, Fran, I spend 8 hours a day screening CVs and that's my job. I didn't have wine with me, but I would have given that person 12 bottles. Okay, the conditioning, we're sifting through CVs to check viability, suitability. The top CVs are chosen. That gets sent to the hiring managers. They take 2 weeks, if not longer, yes, to get back to tell you who to interview. Scheduling happens, logistics around that, coordinating diaries. When we're finally there, everybody's on mute. Okay, you're on mute. Interviews are conducted, 1 round, 2 round, 3 rounds, and then finally a hiring decision gets made. I always joke and I say the least terrible candidate gets hired, and then 2 months later, we're back to performance management and HR gets blamed by the hiring managers. What is going on with this candidate? No, you picked him, you paying him, no, but you gave them to me, and you guys know it. Yes? All right. So that's the traditional hiring process. 52 days to fill a vacancy, average in South Africa, 52 days. Average cost of 57,000 Rand. We don't know this because no one is sending HR an invoice. It's your time. It's your time. Raise of a hand, whose process is similar to this? Yeah? They just want wine. They just want wine. No. Yes. There's wine. There's wine. All right. So that then begs the question, where is the efficiency? Where is the optimization? Where is the technology? And so tonight, I'm going to be speaking through 5 pockets. How do we attract? How do we screen? How do we interview? How do we verify or check? And how do we appoint? By focusing on pieces of technology that we found particularly interesting. Now, disclaimer, I'm not selling or showing any Wamly products apart from the video interview tonight. As I said in the very beginning, these events are about value. What I hope happens is you go, oh wow, what? Does that exist? I've never thought about it that way. And then hopefully tomorrow there is something that you can do immediately in your business, at least to start moving the conversation where you feel appropriate in your hiring process. So for our Wamly clients, please don't phone us tomorrow morning going, I want all of that, okay? But it is where I'm thinking. It is where we're thinking. But we need to validate that and work with you to build out these solutions. So basically, to iterate, we need to attract, screen, interview, check, and appoint. And the reason why there's nothing right here is because we will fill throughout this journey this evening those blanks. So I would love to invite my very first guest, Kyle, on stage with me. Please give Kyle a hand. Testing. Just check if it works. Fist bump.
Thank you.
Is that mic working?
Testing, testing.
There we go.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right, Kyle. So if we think about attracting candidates, what do you think is the common issue? Like, what's the problem around attraction?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the interesting part about this is, with a marketing background, believe it or not, marketers and HR, we're quite similar in the problem that we have. The thing that we have in common is, from marketers' perspective, how do we consistently and predictably attract high-quality customers into a business? And when it comes to an HR perspective, how do you consistently and predictably generate high-quality candidates?
100%.
So that is a common issue that we see between the two. The fun thing about that is, how do we take principles from lead generation and marketing and apply to recruitment and HR? And that's what we're going to obviously get into now.
Before we go on, do you guys agree? Does that make sense? Right? Yes. The idea around attracting is, it's not attracting everybody. It's attracting the right person. You drive the mouse.
Thank you so much. So throughout this process, we're obviously going to be using Brandon as the example. So if we want to use, for example, how do we attract Brandon, the principle that we have to remember is that if we're looking at attracting a high-quality candidate, who is it? And Brandon is the example we're going to be using. So when we think about it, Brandon is the ideal person. So when we put out our marketing, it has to be so powerful that in a sea of people, only Brandon sees this, and he puts his hand up and he says, wow, this actually feels like it's speaking to me. A lot of the times we see that when we put our job ads out there or descriptions, it's very, very broad. We cast a super wide net, and then when people come in, obviously we're happy about it on social media, but what we want to do is be a little bit more precise and a bit more targeted with how we do it. So if we speak to one person, we'll actually inevitably end up speaking to many. If we speak to generalizing it and we speak to a bunch of people, it gets a bit vanilla, and that's when we attract who we actually don't want.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, Carl, what we've been seeing in the attraction conversation particularly is organizations are really finding it hard to attract the right people. It sounds so obvious, but if this part of the process is broken, irrespective of what you do after this, you're still not going to necessarily end up making the correct hiring decision. And so all of this, I guess, Carl, starts with understanding what you're looking for.
100%. So obviously, if you look at the diagram that's in front of us, we want that perfect targeting where, for the ones that said they use social media, just out of interest, who does use social media to hire people?
Okay.
Awesome. That's really, really cool. So when we are using social media to hire people, this is what we want to see. We want to put our ad out there, our job description, and in a sea of people, we target this person. That's very, very important. So that's obviously all good and well. How do we actually do that? How do we have better targeting and bring better people into our funnel? So again, we want to speak directly to Brandon. So to do this, we want better targeting and better creatives. So the trick is to speak to your ideal client about their hopes and dreams and desires better than they can articulate it themselves. When they see this, they go, wow, this is written for me. So
I just want to come in there. Speak to their hopes, dreams, and desires. When Carl and I first interacted on this, that really got me thinking, like, do I know, in Wamly, my customer success manager, what is his or her hopes, dreams, and desires? You see, one of the challenges with hiring is that we're always under pressure from hiring managers to fill the vacancy, right? I read this article the other day around the difference between recruitment and talent acquisition. Does anybody know? Do we have one? Yes, there's one left. Anybody want to give a guess around what's the difference between recruitment and talent acquisition? Yes. That's it. That's it. I'll repeat that. Recruitment is reactive. We're under pressure. The hiring manager needs CVs right now. Let's just move volumes. Talent acquisition is proactive, thinking about what we are talking about now. There's your bottle of wine. Thank you so much. Back to you, Carl.
100%. So that's obviously all good and well to say all of this, but how do we actually go about gathering that data? And obviously data is the very, very important aspect here. So to do it, a suggestion that I would make is to use a formula called the Model 10 formula. So looking at it, the Model 10 formula is to identify the 10 best candidates that have been in this position. So I know that might be a little bit tricky because for a lot of positions within a company, how do you even find 10 candidates to fill it up? It's obviously quite a bit. But I think the best is just to start basic and simple. If you do have one or two, those are your best candidates to start off with. And they'll at least give you some data to start off. So looking at that, the next thing is to identify the 10 best questions that you're going to use to identify these people. So how you think about this is, if your psychometrics is looking at maybe more of your softer traits, like this person is honest, or they're proactive, or they have integrity, those types of things, think about this: how do we target them on social media? That's going to essentially be the best way. Then once you've identified the 10 best questions, you're hopefully going to then ethically bribe them to take this quiz or this survey to obviously fill in all of this.
This is not being live.
No.
No.
So use a quiz survey software. There's a couple out there if you'd like. You can obviously ask me afterwards which is the best one. And obviously survey them. Once you've got that, you're going to compile all the data. The two best ways is if you're using a quiz software, that should be able to do a diagram like you see there on the left to show the spread of maybe who this person might be and some traits. Another way is to use our friends over at ChatGPT. You can take all of the data that you get, put it into ChatGPT and say, write me a custom avatar. That's obviously also quite effective. And then what you're going to do, once you've surveyed hopefully 10 people, let's just assume that is what you've done, then you're going to be able to form your dream candidate avatar, because now you've got some actionable data to essentially do that.
I just want to come in here again. So Carl is speaking about an avatar, this ideal or dream candidate. What we should not forget is also to start with, what does the job require? Okay? We often go to the person, and the person is important, now more so than ever, but at the back end of what the job requires. Now, there is a lot of conversation at the moment around the validity of job profiles, how dynamic are they, should we be hiring for qualification, experience, or should we be hiring for skills? Actually attended a great talk the other day from a colleague at Deloitte who's saying that we should actually just be hiring for skills. Interesting conversation. Let's not go down that rabbit hole, but it is definitely, like a couple of years ago, there was this massive conversation around performance management. Should we be doing that or just coffee chats? I think this job person at the moment is really a hot topic as well, but I think there is a business case for at least considering both.
Yeah, 100%. So once you've got all of the data that you essentially need, or you've obviously tried to profile as many people as possible, you should be able to summarize it in obviously a simple way like this, like you see on the screen. So Brandon, let's say we are hiring Brandon for head of sales or a sales position. We should be able to, with all the data, be able to say Brandon is 35 to 45 male as an example. He's married with 2 kids in Sandton, Johannesburg, values money, career growth, personal development. The average level of education is tertiary, and before he joined this position, the average person had maybe plus minus 5 years experience. His hobbies are golf, rugby, braaiing on the weekends. And why this is important, because now that you're able to profile this person, you can now use social media to target him based on his interests. That's the very, very important thing out of that.
So I want to repeat that. On social media, target him based on his interests. If we think of the traditional way we're going about this, we have a job profile with a job ad, minimum qualifying criteria, CVs come in. HR's job is to look at those 4 or 5 categories first. If I don't meet that, the CV does not go through. Then sometimes the hiring manager goes against the job profiling session that they did, and they say, no, we'll actually accept 2 years experience, but they told you 5. Yeah, so we're back to all the piles of CVs. But the focus, and we're actually seeing this golden thread on the individual, like really getting into braaiing, okay? Who does not like braaiing? Golf, passion, kids, all of that insights into this avatar so that we can target better. Is that correct?
100%. And like back to what we said earlier, when it's not often that you see a job post and you feel like it was written for you. Like they might say that in the interview and say, this job is for me, I'm born to do this, but how do you actually get somebody excited to hop on an interview with you? And this is very rare to do if you profile properly. I think that's the very important thing there.
Yeah.
Cool. So looking at it, so we basically covered, again, how do we find the ideal candidate, a high quality candidate. So we spoke about how do we target them better, how do we write copy that's more, like a lot more engaging for them. The next thing is, how do we then target Brandon? But just out of interest, I don't know if Fran let me, can I give away one bottle of wine? Is
Of
that
course
okay?
you can, yeah,
Do
yeah.
you have enough?
I don't think we have, but we'll make a plan. Go for a bottle.
To the people that put their hands up to say that they do use social media to hire people, if we look at this that you see on the screen here, what is your main platform that you use, just purely out of interest? LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
And of the people that say LinkedIn, how many people do you guys post, or do you actually actively run ads on it? Job ads? I can't hear you,
Just
sorry.
posting, or are you paying for ads to run? Post.
Both.
Post.
Post. Okay, awesome. So yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, looking at that, it's good that most people, when I asked that, said LinkedIn. A big thing that maybe you can use to maybe approach it a little bit differently, LinkedIn ads are obviously priced accordingly, and they're priced to how amazing the targeting capabilities are. If we look at this, if you're going for maybe a more entry-level position, you actually might be better suited running ads on a platform like Facebook or Instagram on TikTok, where there's a lot of volume. Your entry-level positions tend to work really, really well on these platforms, and the price you pay to get in front of these people is oftentimes a lot better. If you're looking at somebody who's maybe a little bit more experienced, they've got maybe 2 to 3 years, Google and YouTube ads, believe it or not, are extremely effective. And then finally at the bottom, if you're going after your more high-end people, then LinkedIn ads is a very, very good platform to go for. If you're starting out, I suggest pick one platform, and amazing that you guys are using LinkedIn. Try LinkedIn job ads to obviously go about targeting Brandon and your ideal candidate on there.
Fantastic. So I'm going to summarize what you said, Carl, and then I'm going to ask the audience if there is a burning question right now that you can't wait for the Q&A. We'll allow one question just to keep it dynamic and interactive as we promised. So what you're saying is to think differently about attraction. Yes, we've got the requirements of the role, but we deeply want to understand this individual, this human that we're trying to hire. Profile them by talking to 10 or 12 or whatever group. Get a set of questions, ask those questions, take that data from your quiz, get this avatar, write copy that speaks personally to this individual, like, oh my goodness, this job ad I'm born to do this, like in the heart, they feel it. That grabs the attention, and therefore the chances of them engaging with the application goes up.
100%. Especially because if you go through the LinkedIn job ads that you see, a lot of the job descriptions are the same, right? They usually start off with, we've been in business for X amount of years, these are our core values, and of course I understand why we say it. It's obviously very important for alignment. But imagine if you're hiring for a sales position and the job description starts with, are you a salesman who can sell ice to an Eskimo? Already that break there and that hook will be enough to make them read the rest of the copy. And then after that, your job is to move them to the next line and the next line. So from what you've said, if you've done a good enough job of screening people and you understand their dreams and desires, let the copy writer write job descriptions based off that. And you'll get a lot higher conversion rate on your job
Perfect.
descriptions.
Does that make sense? Fantastic. A burning question right now for Carl. Okay, that hand was up first. Sorry, Monet. Please go, sir. I'll repeat the question. Everybody looks pretty on Instagram, but successful on LinkedIn. And successful. How do you, and all the influencers as well, right? Yeah. How do you mitigate the biases? That's the question. Great question.
So I think the biases come from as well, how well do you understand the candidate, first of all, and if you're able to pick up on those biases. So from your question, what would in your opinion be a bias be? Would it be a slight lie about the experience, or what would a bias actually be? That's a really good question. I don't want to speak out of turn. I think one of the experts will answer this, but I think that would come down to a recruitment process and how you actually judge somebody based on if you have a psychometric assessment and then after that you make them do some type of homework or application to prove that they have competence in the position, I think that would probably come in there. Other than that, I think that would be probably the best way to judge for those biases.
Yeah. I think as we progress, this is step one in the process. So we are attracting. We might attract large volumes, but we want to get to one Brandon. And that's exactly going to address where we're going with. That's a great question. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. So hopefully Brandon saw the copy, our avatar for the evening. Spoke directly to his heart. He's excited. Feels like he's the only one reading it, and he's definitely clicking or emailing or do whatever we ask from him in this step. But now we need to screen Brandon and everybody else that clicked on it. So I would like to invite Joel to the stage to have a conversation with me around screening. While Joel is making his way here, what are your biggest frustrations in terms of screening at the moment? One-liners and words. Yell. What? People who lie, okay? Horrible CVs. What? Photos. The lack thereof or the actual photos, okay? Applicants. Serial applicants. Quick apply on LinkedIn for everything. Yes. Okay. Joel, do you agree? Challenges in screening.
Yeah. So I'm not very familiar with the HR process to the extent of being too heavily invested in the HR industry, but as an entrepreneur and being in the education space, I was exposed to hiring.
Just leave it up.
Yeah, apologies.
Can we pump the volume, please? Thank you.
I've been exposed to the process of hiring, firing, and doing the role that a business owner would have to do.
Awesome. So Joel, we've just heard screening, and I didn't hear the word, it takes time, but maybe someone yelled it. But it usually takes a lot of time and admin, right? Let's go back to my poor friend who screens CVs for 8 hours a day and believes that's her core job, with the title Human Resource Business Partner. Yeah. Okay. So there are challenges. There are challenges in screening, and when I met Joel, I was particularly interested in how we can again leverage a different way of thinking and technology around screening.
Yeah, dead right. So for me, just as an entrepreneur and as a person within a business, I love automation. I cannot stand the idea of a repetitive task. And when we needed to hire for a new role in a new organization that we started, I came to realize that there's approximately 200 plus tasks between the different categories of attracting, screening, and all the rest of the things that go into it. So I tried to conceptualize ways in which we could streamline this process, and we actually ended up live testing it and demoing it by putting out a job post to see what would that look like, but more specifically what it would look like with AI. As you all know, everyone uses ChatGPT, and conveniently AI was democratized just last year, but it's been available to us for a lot longer. It's just, brought the attention to it very quickly. So on our side, I wanted to see how we could use the products that we're building in the AI space to actually start a hiring process. So what we do is focus on engagement with our audience and our customers and then their extended customers. But I thought, could we use a product of our own to hire for the person that would be selling the product for us? So there's two components to it. The first is demonstrating whether or not the candidate is competent for the role based on the avatar and what we're looking for. So we use something called OCR technology, which stands for Object Character Recognition. And if you look closely, that's from a CV. Below it, it says text and then a label to it. So it's actually been able to pick out from the CV, recognize the characters in it, what's actually going on in the CV.
Okay, wait. I'm going to be vulnerable and say I'm confused. Hopefully someone in the audience is going, huh? So let me just backtrack here. So what you're saying is, I think I saw a slide around LinkedIn, the ad. Can you go two back? So we have an ad. This is a sales job on LinkedIn. Brandon reads it, loves it. He gets hooked, and he wants to engage with it. On what platform and how is he now doing this?
So the call to action that we use on LinkedIn, instead of just the quick apply is to a link that says Sales Genie, apply for the role. You've got a few options to use. You can
And
either,
this is now on your phone.
yeah, this is on your phone. It can also be on WhatsApp for convenience. There's all sorts of things you can do with WhatsApp, but another day. So one of the first options you've got there is chat with AI about the role. Has anyone heard that idea that you've got to provide AI a good prompt?
Yeah?
That's another way of putting that is how do you contextualize the AI tool? So we merely contextualized an AI tool with the exact person and job role responsibilities and the relevant information to our company, and we created a chatbot which allowed for candidates to upload their CVs in the process, and then immediately tell the candidate whether or not they were competent for that role.
Okay, so let me stop you. The candidate starts engaging via this chatbot. They upload their CV. The AI, through the OCR and the large language models and the ChatGPT, is now analyzing the CV based on the requirements of the job and this avatar that we created. And now it's telling this candidate what?
Well, there's multiple paths that could follow. First path is not an ideal candidate. Explain to the candidate why. They can immediately engage with the chatbot on that criteria.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is if they are an ideal candidate, it would be flagged on our back-end systems, but then continue allowing the candidate to experience the hiring process.
Yes.
So what you can see here, it says, what did the AI do? I took a snippet out of the code. It says there that your role is to screen resumes for a sales position in a SaaS environment. And then further to that is all the roles, responsibilities, and package details that the job actually had. This candidate uploaded their CV. It's a screenshot from their chat, and it gives a breakdown of why they are appropriate with the relevant experience and education that I'd asked for. Just by the way, this is an actual role. This is an actual person I'm looking for. Hiring's a bitch. Like HR is a bitch, and we all know that.
He's always that guy.
I've got a friend in the audience. His name's Gideon. He puts these events together with Sabrina and Wamly and stuff. And him and I have often had this conversation around people in your companies and hiring and training and upskilling. Like it's difficult. It is a challenging task. So for me, it was more like, how could we get the opportunity to allow for candidates and that whole process to be automated?
While we're getting the slides back up, so at this point, Joel, not a single HR individual or hiring manager has interacted with the candidate. Am I correct?
Not at all. It's only been an AI model, 100%.
Okay. Fantastic. Please continue.
That includes questions about the company and the generic questions that people would ask, like times that they start and salary payment dates and all of those other bits and pieces. And then furthering to that, if the candidate is appropriate, they go through the stages of some questions. If they go through those questions appropriately, I should add the questions have also been designed based off the information given in their CV.
Let's just double click on that because that's really important. So the AI is working out if Brandon is matching the requirements of the job and the avatar that we designed. It's giving Brandon feedback. The feedback can be, well, not, but why not? And here's what you can do. Brandon can start asking it about the organization, those typical questions at the back end of an interview. And do you have any questions for us? It's always the same three, right? Just talk about the salary again. What's leave like? What's your policy around work-life balance and work from home these days? So the AI can answer all of that for us.
Yep,
Obviously,
right.
we feed it that information. And then it can also design questions based on its understanding of my CV in relation to the requirements,
Yeah, 100%.
of which the candidate can then answer.
100%.
Okay. And now finally, it's happy, and it can then from there progress Brendan forward.
In the process. So you'll see I kind of made a little bit of a joke with it, but used Wamly to get a one-way video interview, and then asked the candidate to please opt as if they were delivering a pitch to Mark Cuban. You've got 30 seconds. And we only wanted the candidates that got through this process to go to the Wamly platform. So we weren't just giving this project link out to anyone in that instance.
Okay. Incredible. Does that make sense? If you say no, it's okay. So the idea of this piece of technology is to have, especially on high volumes, okay? That's always important. We're not applying generic vanilla solutions to every role in the organization. I highly doubt an HR executive interacting via WhatsApp with a bot asking questions, right? They obviously, the higher up you go in the organization, the strategy might change. But where there are volumes, graduates, call centers, sales, financial advisors, high turnover, have the technology do a lot of that work on your behalf. What is really important, Joel, is that we understand what we're looking for and what that criteria is, right? And I think that goes back to teaching this large language model.
Yeah, so the more, for an organization, the more CVs you're getting applying for the job, the better to be able to train these large language models. Out of curiosity, who gets more than 1,000 applicants coming through on a job post?
Couple of hands. 500 applicants for some of your jobs? Yeah? Yeah?
I mean, even 100 CVs is a lot to go through. If you had to print out 100 pages of CVs.
Oh my goodness, no, please no.
So I think that's the end goal for us. It's like, how do you take away that process of having to manually go through that CV and only get the relevant information that you need as an employer or HR person?
What I really love about what Joel is also describing is, at Wamly, we are obsessed with the candidate experience because we know you are. And often candidates don't hear anything back. It takes 52 days, if you're lucky, to fill the vacancy. There are multiple steps. I'm logging in at 10 different places. It's all static. I'm repeating the information I'm having to give in all of these various systems. Where what Joel is showing now is a dynamic, interactive, basically WhatsApp conversation. But it's contextual to my CV, the job, the questions I'm asking. It's reading and understanding me based on the requirements, which when I heard of it the very first time, it was quite scary. We were all having this conversation around AI taking our jobs. But going back to the BP part in your job profile, that's not where you should be adding value in screening. So let's have the technology do that so we free up the time for you to actually go and add the value. Any burning questions for Joel? Yes, there's a question there at the back. Do we have the roaming mic, please? Your voice is loud. Okay, go. Gooi.
This is a great question.
Go for it.
Okay, we're talking about discrimination.
Just before you do,
within
did
AI
everybody in
models.
the audience hear the question? Okay, let me repeat. So the question was, obviously we're recruiting on different levels. Not everybody's got the same competence, not everybody's got the same familiarity with technology. Is technology like this, and all the technology we'll be showcasing this evening, is it at all discriminating? Is that your question? Thank you.
The truth is, yes, it is discriminating. It starts out like that. More recently, we did some work with the Gates Foundation, where the idea was, it was a research model on how would you get AI models into low-income countries, so essentially Africa and India, and give that access to that space. And one of the questions I had to go through is how do you mitigate biases towards cultural biases with these AI models? Couple of small things. One, the AI models can translate into any language, so that's immediately being inclusive in that space. And then two,
Just live it up.
back onto that context that I gave the bot, this is a very African question, what you're asking, because it also exists in the education space. We need to start actively training these large language models with more CVs, pointing out these faults, seeing where the AI models start going wrong. You use the word replace in terms of jobs and AI models. I don't think it's more the idea of replacing. I think it's more an idea of it's an extension to us. It's an additional tool that we need to use. It's now just the time that, as I said earlier, we've now got democratized large language models. As civilians, we've only got this tiny little piece of technology and just been given access to it. Imagine what the creators and governments have got control and backends and the abilities they've got. But to come back to the context of what you're asking, now that we've been given this access, we need to start training these large language models in accordance to those cultural biases that might come up and everything that goes around there. If you've got any more insights, please chat to me afterwards.
I want to add to that. So in Paris, I was in a panel discussion, and the topic was literally, is Africa ready for AI? So I had 6 panel members with me. I was one, 6 different African countries. And to sum it up, I can send the link of the entire panel conversation, but to sum it up, the answer was no. And the reason for the no was not a matter of competence. It was around governance, frameworks, and standard operating procedures in which to fairly operate and consciously and ethically operate with this technology. Now, the no, of course, will not apply across every single country or every single business, but there is a massive need for institutions, organizations, governments to start focusing on, I mean, someone like Dubai has got a minister of AI. I know Egypt is doing a lot of work in that space. Ghana is doing a lot of work in that space. Nigeria is doing a lot of work in that space. I haven't read, maybe you have, what is South Africa doing in terms of AI? And how do we govern this? So it's a very, very valid question. I think ethics at the heart of all of this, because we're dealing with people, is going to remain top of mind. The interesting thing, if you circle back to what Elon tried to do a couple of weeks ago, you guys are aware that he said, can we just stop this development, the speed at least of it? There was this thing circulating where you ask for signatures. The reality is no matter who asks, it's not going to stop. So I ended that panel conversation specifically around the AI saying, if we are going to be afraid of it and not engage with it, we are going to become irrelevant very quickly. So we might as well become curious and at least start asking good questions like that one. So thank you for that question. Thank you, Joel. Super interesting stuff. Thank you so much. Okay. Yes. Sorry, can you park that for the Q&A? Thank you. We're circling back to a big Q&A. All right, guys, so let's not lose track. Brandon interacted with the AI. The AI was happy in the way it screened Brandon. And now it's over to Wamly, the video interview. So for those of you who don't know, we are a one-way video interview platform where our technology facilitates an interview with your candidate without you having to be there. By show of hands, how many of you have sat in an interview where within the first 5 minutes you knew that this candidate does not look like their CV, you are not going to hire them, you wish you could ask them to go, but you cannot because that's unprofessional and rude? Yes, we've all been there. Okay? COVID has helped a bit on Teams and Zoom because we can have the private chat, amongst the panel. Speed this up. Okay, don't ask questions 7 and 8. Okay. This is the exact point of our business, is we waste hours in scheduling and setting up interviews, especially early in the process. Who's doing telephonic screening calls? Yes. Who's running first round interviews with a hiring manager and HR? Yes. Who's got structured interview guides? Yes. Okay. So Wamly aims to help you solve that. Now, I'm quickly going to show you Brendan going through Wamly, our avatar. So this is a quick video. All our clients have their own Wamly platform. You will see my mouse come up in a second, and I'm just going to talk you through the dashboard there. There's my project, the Sales Genie. There's one new candidate to rate. On the left-hand side, we have many features in the Wamly platform. I'm not going to deep dive into them, but basically you're able to set up a form, a questionnaire. You're able to add an intro video. You build your interview guide. There's a skills test feature, and then you set up a project. A project is a vacancy. Brandon is applying for the sales role. In the project, we have 3 candidates, of which Brendan is in there. At the top, if I go to edit my project, I'm quickly going to show you how easy it is to set up the project. It's got a name. You can link an intro video where you share more about your organization, your brand, what the job is about. There's a start date, there's an end date, because Brandon will receive a link that he needs to click on to go through the journey. You can specify your panel, so the raters that you want to link to the vacancy, who will watch the video after Brandon and the rest of the candidates have completed. There's a feature in Wamly now, our latest feature, where you're able to build a skills test, which is a multiple choice questionnaire with right and wrong answers, where you can test knowledge and skills. You will set up your questions. There's our question. 10 seconds to prepare, 60 seconds to answer. You can specify the prep time and the answer time, and then there's a basic form that you can set up where you can ask certain questions that Brandon is typing on the keyboard. Once the project is set up, a link goes out to all the candidates. You can either add the candidates manually in your Wamly platform, or you can share a generic link embedded, like Joel just showed us, through the WhatsApp chatbot. So those are the three ways: import from your ATS, add them manually, or share the project link. That can be embedded on any media platform. Brendan got it through WhatsApp. He clicked on the link. The technology took over, so HR and line manager sits back. Brendan goes through the interview. He answers the question while being recorded in his own convenient time, and then Joel, the rater, was notified. So this is the candidate screen. Here at the top, you can see the question. Let's listen to the answer.
Why you should hire me? You should hire me because I have the relevant qualifications, experience, and the right attitude to contribute to this amazing, innovative team. I have an excellent track record on how to build, maintain, and nurture relationships that end in a signed deal. I filled out the questionnaire like a rock star, and now I look forward to speaking to a human and hope to sign that contract with you soon. See you soon, future employer.
Sure. I filled out that questionnaire like a rock star. See you soon, future employer. Not too sure how I'll feel to watch that video. Oh, that's cool. It's a sales role, right? So basically then the rater can then make a comment for question 1, bring him in for checking, give a score for question 1, and if there were more questions in the interview guide, the panel would be able to hop and listen to the other questions being answered. Once the panel is done scoring, there's a section where Wamly brings all the panel members' comments and scores together. So there you can see Joel rating Brandon, bring him in for checking, and then in Wamly you're able to send an email or embed that back into the chatbot, where you're able to then invite Brandon to the next round with a specific template from your side, either rejecting, progressing, moving him to a talent pool, whatever you want to be doing to your candidates, and then the video interview part is finished. I absolutely flew through this because the point is not to demo Wamly per se to you, but to show from the technology screening, we could move our candidates to a seamless process like this, where the technology again is facilitating that first round interview or that screening call. The candidates get presented with the same questions, which creates consistency, fairness, and standardization. Everybody's got the same time to think, the same time to answer in their own convenient time, and it just saves so much time. In fact, some of our clients are screening through 30 Wamly videos in the same time it used to take them to do one Zoom interview. Okay? Why? Because you're not listening to one long interview. If I get to question 2, which is maybe what is your salary expectation, and the person goes 2 million rand, okay, then we go, well, don't have budget for that, whatever the case might be, and you just simply move over to the next candidate. The idea is not necessarily to appoint someone from your video interview provider. Some of our clients have become so mature now that they trust the process and the questions that they're asking that they are able to do that. But the idea really is to, from a software like Wamly, to go, okay, who do I actually now want to spend my precious time with in a two-way conversation like a Zoom, Teams, or face-to-face interview? Because we firmly believe that there's a lot of value in a two-way conversation. Just don't see everybody. Okay. Does that make sense? Agree? All right. Let's move on. So now, we saw Brandon in our video interview. We bring him into the face-to-face interview. We enjoy the face-to-face interview. He gets to ask his questions. We get to respond. We can probe. We can go deeper into that. And now we need to check if Brandon is okay, if he's saying who he is. All right, so I would like to invite my next guest, JK Du Toit, to stage. JK, please join me. There you go. JK, so if I think about checking, right, what immediately comes to mind is like credit, criminal, do you have that degree you said you do, have you been in jail?
That would actually make a great interview question, by the way.
To ask that? Have you been in jail? And see the reaction. Okay. Is that all that checking is about and verifying?
Not necessarily. So we have a couple of checks, and we've actually listed some of them here. So the first thing is we have something called direct screening, which we are quite familiar with. Sorry. So who said candidate vetting is stressful? I'm 26 and I feel great, man. So,
By show of hand, who feels like this? Yes.
yeah. And we're actually going to get into the reasons for this now, right? Because if we look at sorry, thing's not working. But if we look at the actual current screening processes, there might be a couple of gaps that we haven't actually thought about. So just by a quick raise of hands, how many of you guys are currently comfortable with these screening tools to manage your organization's risk? So you've gone through an interviewing process, you now have your actual applicants. By a raise of hands, how many of you guys can actually say that you are comfortable with the checks that you're currently doing in terms of managing risk?
3 hands.
Out of,
4 hands.
out of everyone.
Okay. About 10, 15.
Do you guys do checks, like proper, and none of you guys are comfortable with them? Perfect. So let's quickly get into some of the risks, right? So we have Brandon's direct risks. So those are the current checks that you guys would be doing at this particular point in time. That is your XDS. If you guys use a company like Beeswax, LexisNexis, those are the checks that currently relate to Brandon as an applicant. And those are the types of things that I would want to be checking. In particular areas of risk within our organization, I would want to know, is Brandon financially responsible? Has Brandon got a criminal record? And most importantly, does Brandon actually exist with Home Affairs? How many of you guys know something called network risk? Have you ever come across a network risk analysis? Okay, so let's quickly dig into that. So the only 3 things, just before I get into this, that you guys need to know about us. So we provide automated vetting solutions. So we basically take all of your current vetting and we automate it into a single workflow. And secondly is we take that information to help you manage and understand your risk. And as you can see, we're fantastic at attention to detail as well.
Yeah, you said 3, I'm seeing 2.
Yes, no, it's our attention to detail. But no, actually the third one is that we are very, very good at what we do. Our name isn't a customer-facing brand, but we are trusted by some of the world's biggest global agencies to do these particular checks and balances on companies and individuals in very specific circumstances. So the first one is your direct risk. So these were the ones that I mentioned. When you're currently screening an applicant, what you would like to do is firstly to verify the person actually exists. Currently, there are a couple of companies. There's one in Krugersdorp, there's one in Randburg. 850 Rand currently buys you a fake ID, a bank statement, and a proof of address. I can use that information to get through any KYC process online at this particular point in time. So if you do not have a vetting provider that currently actually links and checks your people with Home Affairs, it's very easy for people to pass your screening and you would not actually know about this. Secondly, how many of you guys are members of the Southern African Fraud Prevention Services? How many of you guys actually do check with SAFPS? Whether the person you're employing is either a victim of fraud or a known fraudster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's a couple of you guys, but if you are not registered with SAFPS, so the actual Fraud Prevention Services, there are quite a lot of really good checks that you guys can actually do. Quite often somebody's identity has been stolen. How many of you guys know about the recent hacks that have happened? I'm not sure if you guys have actually come across any fake profiles applying for jobs, bank accounts, bonds. But there's a huge amount of fake profiles currently running around as a result of a hack. One of our major credit bureaus in South Africa was hacked, and what that now means is your personal information is floating around the internet, being sold on the dark web, and exactly the same for applicants, which means that people are applying for jobs where the HR individuals, if the proper checks are not done, then they're actually getting through. How many of you guys use companies like LexisNexis for your PEP, sanctions, adverse media? Are you guys familiar with those? Fantastic. They're very, very important to do, particularly on known terrorist risks, and there's a whole bunch of bribery and other charges currently on those checks that we would actually need to know about. And then, of course, your FBI wanted lists, all those things are published, and they're quite easy to get around. So these are what we actually call direct risks. Now, the risks that you would not actually be aware of are things that we call network risks. So these are instances where Brandon is actually linked to a whole bunch of individuals around him. Do you know who Brandon's brothers or sisters or kids or wife are? And one of the key questions that we actually like to ask in these types of presentations is, do you know, as an example, from a network risk perspective, whether your chief procurement officer is married to the director of one of your largest supplying entities?
Now, silly
Any of you
question,
guys know?
JK.
Yes.
Why does it matter?
It opens up, so that's something we call a conflict of interest. It opens up an opportunity for potential collusion. So if I'm spending, as a bank, 15 or 20 million rand a month with a particular supplier, how do I know it should not be 8 or 9 million rand a month and the invoices are being loaded as a result of collusion? How do we know that my CFO and my procurement director are not actually neighbors? Are any of you guys actually doing those checks? And do we have the tools available to see what the organizational risk is for my company when I bring a new person in, once we actually start screening them? And once we start looking at audits, and once we start looking at finance, and once we start looking at procurement, if we take an organization such as Eskom as an example.
Just an example. Just an example.
Yeah. So do we know how many of the employees are going to be linked to actual supplier entities? That's where more than 80% of our fraud in South Africa currently happens, and nobody's actually checking it. Not a single person is checking that, right? Sorry. This is an actual network analysis that we did. So this is an actual company in South Africa. So what we are looking at, all of these blue dots are employees of our client, right? These red dots are known fraudsters listed on the SAFPS database. What we are looking at here are 13 employees employed by a large listed organization who do not know that all of these fraudsters are linked to those employees. The organization themselves didn't actually do those particular checks and balances. So it's our job as an organization to help companies truly understand what network risk means for your company and how you actually need to mitigate and manage those risks. Now, if we are looking at particular individuals, it doesn't mean because there's a link, it actually means that it's a massive problem. A lot of these are white flags. What it does mean is that if a candidate comes in, so if Brandon comes in through the interviewing process, what is the risk to my organization, and then how do we help the company actually manage that?
So all of this then builds up. It's interesting, and scary. My goodness. I wonder what my network looks like.
Oh, it's terrible. I've got it on the screen.
So all of this then obviously begs the question, right? How can we check this? And you guys have created this incredible technology, which we're going to see a bit of a demo now on Brandon. Can I hit play and you talk us through it?
Go for it. So what we built is a live online biometric platform, which actually allows every single person in South Africa to verify themselves biometrically. So here we can see Brandon taking his selfie. That picture is now being run through Home Affairs, and we're biometrically matching his face to his ID book and his passport at Home Affairs, as quick as this. What we're now doing with this information is we are quickly running it through Home Affairs, and we're now going to return all of Brandon's personal information. Our checks run as quick as this. You give us an ID number, we will provide between 6,000 and 8,000 data points back on you as an individual. That means I can verify your information with Home Affairs, your Ds, your SIP-C, potential conflicts of interest, trusts, any other link that you would like to see. As quickly as this, we will effectively bring back for analysis, obviously within certain POPIA restrictions. So we analyze your data in absolute record speed. A lot of our clients use these technologies. They'll basically post a link out for job applicants to come and to basically self-register, self-apply. The system goes and pulls their bank statements. The system goes and creates an ID certificate. All of that backwards and forwards, where you needed all of your documentation, all of a sudden falls away. It means that somebody up here mentioned earlier lying was the biggest risk and the biggest frustration they had. This takes all of that lying and all of the frustration away through automated vetting via biometrics, and our system's going and fetching the data and building your candidate profile for you in near real time.
Fantastic, phenomenal. Scary but phenomenal. JK, I've always thought, and maybe someone in the audience shares this thought, surely we would want to try and do this early in the process, right? Like you go through all of this trouble, you're left with Brandon, and this thing flags a crazy spider network like that. Is there a way for us to bring this in earlier in the process?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not at this particular level because we need legitimate interest in order to do particular checks. But what you would like to do is very early on in the process understand if the person is who they say they are, and any high-level flags. Is the person a known fraudster, or is the identity being used a victim of identity theft? So at a very high level, we can do a quick screen, get them through the interviewing process, and then do more detailed checks as we get towards the end. Yeah,
At the end.
exactly.
Any burning questions? Yes, right here in front. The question is this legal?
Not at all, no. My office is in the back.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the
Yes.
question is around consent. Do we need
Because
consent?
I mean, Poppy. Let's just go with Poppy.
Yeah.
It is the release of personal information. So how do you, is there a form or is there a way, there's got to be signature and paperwork to backtrack if something does come up dodgy?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We've got POPIA for those of you who deal with international organizations. We've got something called GDPR. So all of these things come to mind. Now, what happens is we've built something called privacy by design. By that job applicants coming in and saying, I want to apply for this job or I want to apply for this particular product, they provide consent for us to do the checks for that particular purpose, and they provide consent as part of the workflow. So everything is embedded. And you would have seen the example of Brandon actually coming in and taking his own selfie and us verifying him for the purpose of applying for a job. So
He's also entering his own ID.
correct,
Yeah.
yes. So he entered his own ID, verified all of his own information. So all we're basically taking is we're replacing a person having to provide an ID book with a digital verification and then automating so you as an HR person doesn't need to go back and forth with all the documentation. Everything is fully automated and everything sits in a single white labeled workflow for you. So POPIA is catered for, GDPR is catered for. As an organization, we're also regulated by the Credit Act, so we are also a registered credit bureau, which is how we managed to get all this information and stuff in the first place, which took quite a long time.
Yep.
We have a social media scraping tool. Obviously, it's public information, so there's no POPIA restrictions on that. We do have a tool. It is available, but I haven't integrated into these models, but it's very, very easy for us to do if you wanted to.
Please keep the rest of the questions for your Q&A, okay, of all the 4 categories. Jake, I want to thank you.
Cool.
Phenomenal stuff, super interesting. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are almost done. I know you are thirsty and hungry, so just give me a couple of more minutes of your time, and then we absolutely want to get to that Q&A. The last part of the conversation is, how do we now close the loop? How do we communicate back to the candidates? I think often candidates complain that they don't hear back, right? I go through this process, I apply, I don't hear back. We are inundated. The information is all over the place, depending on where you made it in the process. And so we just wanted to share a very basic thing that we started at Wamly. So we recently ran a job, and I just, in my house, shot a video, and we just shared this with the unsuccessful candidates. It's not fancy technology. I think this is Loom. You can download it. It's for free. But just a video.
Hi. I firstly want to start off by thanking you for completing your video interview for the role of Customer Success Manager here at Wamly. You know, I believe that so often candidates who apply for jobs just never hear back. And that is just simply not the business that we are. And so this is a video for you to, 1, firstly, thank you for completing the video interview. 2, thank you for giving it your all. Thank you for answering the questions. Thank you for just being authentic and true to yourself. But then also this video serves as feedback to inform you that unfortunately you are not successful for this position. Not because of anything that you did wrong, but because we just had simply a lot of candidates that matched our criteria that we are looking for better. I do, however, want to leave you with this, and I want to encourage you to continue to put yourself out there. Continue to grow, to develop yourself, and to apply for jobs, because your next amazing opportunity might just be around the corner. And so I will be following you, I will be connecting with you on LinkedIn. Hit me up a message if you want. Ask us any questions because, life is all about relationships and networking and so much more than just a job. And that's what we stand for and who we are. So again, thank you so much for coming through, for doing your video interview, and the best of luck for your career.
So, a simple thing, right? 1 minute of my time. I know we can't make videos for every single vacancy in every single department in your organization, but maybe you can shoot one video with the head of department, with your HR exec, with the CEO. In Wamly, we have a feature called the intro video, which is a video that the candidates watch before they start their journey. And all our clients use that feature, and they record one video from the CEO, and they use it in all the jobs, or a head of department, or the actual line manager that this person will be reporting to. It's a quick thing that you do. It takes 60 seconds, but the impact that has got on a personal level back to a candidate, I believe, just shows a lot about your brand, your value, your ethics. We say we care. Do we show it? Okay. Not fancy technology, but something to think about at the end of your process. Now, before I go into summarizing this evening, that was a rejection video. But obviously, we also want to reach out to the potential candidate that we now want to hire. And so during this entire evening, we had Brandon, our avatar, being attracted. Kyle spoke about how we write copy that speak to his heart, his hobbies, his interests, his passions, his desires. He engages with it. The chatbot takes over through WhatsApp, matching his criteria to the job and the organization based on the CV and questions that's dynamically being posed to Brandon through the bots. Finally, Brandon makes it past into Wamly, where he's doing the video interview, which I showed you, and he took a photo of himself in JK's technology, and he was verified. Do you guys think Brandon should be appointed? Yeah. Definitely, yes? Okay. Brandon, where are you? Come forward. Where's Brandon? Brandon, come here, come here. No, really, Brandon, come forward. So he's a real human, and Brandon went through the entire journey, and Joel is actually here. Come forward, Joel. To officially welcome him.
He's got a
So I just have one question for you, Brandon. Yeah. As a candidate, what was that experience like?
Honestly, it was such a Oh, sorry, can you hear me? It was such a streamlined and smooth process, and like the ability to actually speak to the AI and submit your CV to see if I actually was the perfect fit for the role was really perfect. Like, not wasting anyone's time. Like, didn't waste my time, didn't waste your time. You saw that I was perfect.
A rock star. And tell me the video interview part.
Yeah, that was super easy. Not gonna lie, I was really nervous to do that. But yeah, it was quite simple actually. Just click the button, 10 seconds, take a deep breath, and shoot your best shot.
And I guess not nearly as stressful than taking the first selfie in JK's technology, seeing that spinning, and then seeing the verified, right?
Yeah, thank God. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for going through it. Thank you for being an amazing avatar and landing a real job. Good luck with that. Thank you. Cheers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so what problems are we aiming to solve here? Let's wrap it up. We want to reduce the time to hire drastically. We want to get to know the real person behind the CV so much quicker. In fact, that is another favorite slide of mine that I didn't bring back tonight. But the predictive validity of a CV and understanding if someone will be successful in a job is really bad. The CV sits right at the bottom of the validity ladder, just above star signs and graphology. Okay? But the whole world looks at CVs. We want to reduce your cost. It's really important, irrespective of what technology you bring into your business, to actually calculate return on investment. Okay? Not just to bring technology in because of sentiment or because you perceive it's going to make your life easier. Someone is going to sign off some sort of contract, and there needs to be real ROI based on time spent and efficiency created. Improve your culture fit. Create a baseline. Carl spoke about avatars, models. Have flexibility. I'm specifically now referring to something like the chatbots, the video interview, coordination of diaries, getting everybody in the same room, that's a pain. It's really a frustration and it takes a lot of time. So how do you create flexibility for both candidates, HR and line managers? And then lastly, de-stress the entire process. As we can see, Brandon doesn't look stressed at all. Before we get to the Q&A, I have got a big ask. Can everybody please scan this QR code? There is a 1,000 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher up for grabs. Scan the QR code. You'll be directed to a bot. This will take you 3 minutes to do. I just want you to go through the bot and answer these questions for me. And then we're going to do the Q&A. The bot is going to randomize and pick a winner. Here is the voucher. The previous event, we had a coffee machine. Did the lady who won the coffee machine, is she here? Is your coffee machine working? Is it working? Is the QR code giving an error for everybody? It's working. Who's getting an error? Okay, what did you do, Sir Clinton? What did you do? Just refresh. If you get an error, just refresh, please. Don't miss out on the voucher. Please go through this process. 3 minutes. I'll share with you now why. Do not help them. There's some individuals in here saying, don't help the people with errors. She's joking. She's joking. Anybody still left with an error? Did it work? Okay. Sorry? Did it work? And if you refresh? If you still have an error, please raise your hand. A Wamly employee will come to you and come and assist you. Here's an error. Shanae, Joel, can you also help, please? Can I see? Joel. By the way, this is for the live streaming as well. So on your screen, if you scan it, please go through it. It will help us so much. And you obviously also stand a chance for the voucher. So please don't think it's just for the audience here at the Tryst. If you can see the slide on your side, wherever you are in the world, please scan it. It would be fantastic. Just by show of hand, is anybody done? Just see who are the eager beavers here. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, thank you. Anybody still with an error? Still. Take my phone. Can we get another phone? Shanae, can you please bring a phone, any phone? Clinton, you want to? Oh. Yeah, sorry. No. No. Can we use it? Thank you so much. Yeah? Any more errors? An error. There's an error, Shanae. Here you go. You can complete it on that phone. Perfect. Thank you, Clinton. Anybody else requires a phone to do it? There? Thank you, Clinton. Please remember it's Clinton's. In HR, we trust each other with our phones. Incredible. What a community. Yes, I know who's got your phone. Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, so for those of you who are done, I'm going to slowly start speaking about the reason behind this. Of course, for us, it's extremely important to gather information and hear where you are at the moment. And so we created this quick interactive bot just to understand your context around attracting, screening, interviewing, assessing, onboarding, how you look at metrics, how you look at data. We will not be sharing this with anybody. Okay, so disclaimer right there. It's for us at Wamly just to gather themes, and then I will compile an anonymous report with the stats and the findings and share that back to you. Okay, so that you can actually start understanding if what is your frustration is an industry frustration, or is it everybody struggling with this? Okay, gathering empirical information, data to really understand where are those pain points at the moment. Does that make sense? Fantastic. I'm going to give 1 more minute. If you are still busy, please continue by yourself. Let's start with Q&A. It is now 5 to 8. I'm not going to set a specific deadline on the Q&A. It's usually about 15 minutes. So about 10 past 8, we will be back in there, networking, celebrating, taking photos, sharing pictures. So, Q&A. Let's go for it. The mics will be roaming around. So where are my mics? Sinead, do you have a mic? Good. The mic's ready. Yes. Mic here in front.
My question's for JK. So once you've got all this information that you've now scraped from everywhere, this person that you've done this test on might not even be aware of some of this information. And that information could have quite an impact just not on their general life, and it's obviously going to disqualify them in some instances for the job. So to what extent do you give feedback on what you found when you do those assessments?
Well, POPIA dictates that we need to specify the type of information that we're going to be pulling off the person, as well as the purpose for which it's going to be used. So in our privacy by design methodology, the person actually sees which data points we're going to use and what we're going to be using it for. So I will never ever go and do, as an example, a credit check on you if I only need to verify you as an individual. So we'll only ever go as far as the consent that you've given, and you get consent, and you get something called informed consent, and we just work on an informed consent principle. So you'll always know what data I'm pulling and the purpose that I'm pulling it for, as well as what we're doing with it, and then normal POPIA rules apply. As a credit bureau, we are very heavily regulated. I'm audited 4 times a year to make sure, because we have so much data, that doesn't happen. Yes, so typically our clients would be, banks, they would be your bond originators, they would be, like large corporates, and they would actually share that information with you if you ask for it. So I'm not sure if you guys know, but any company in South Africa that holds information on you, you can go to them and ask for a copy of your information, and they are legally obliged to give it to you. So some of the new things coming out to actually allow you to get that feedback. They're not allowed to withhold your personal information from you at all.
Thank you. Just a house rule on the Q&A, so please put the mic straight to your mouth so that everybody in the audience can hear, and ask a question, don't necessarily accept, let's take a feedback, and if you want to deep dive into that, let's hook up afterwards when we're networking. Okay, thank you guys. Next question. Okay, there, Mornay, there, at the back. Okay, cool. Oh, you were second, sorry, I'm sorry. My multitasking. I'll be with you now. Okay. Go for it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is also for JK. How do you guys ensure that, first of all, you have a lot of people's info, that you don't have like a Transnet 2.0 situation? And also, how do you ensure that your clients can trust you? Because obviously your clients now rely on you to keep their candidates' information safe. So how do you ensure trust to them, but also Transnet?
Mike, Sinead. No, just put it on.
So again, being a registered credit bureau, we carry quite a lot of burden on our shoulders. Regulatory reviews, compliance reviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So as general course of business, we have to be penetration tested at least once a year. So we get white hackers that actually try and hack our systems for 2 weeks. So we have some of the best hacking individuals in South Africa basically trying to break into our systems. So that's the first one. Twice a year, we go through something called vulnerability assessments, and that is where you have your web trawlers. So the web trawlers will typically come and try and break into your system. From a downstream client point of view, we're very, very strict with who we actually give information to. Just this week, I have already declined 2 clients access. The one was a company that won a government contract. So we basically showed them away. I cannot service them with data. And then there was also another private individual that wanted access. Of course, we cannot do that. So what we will do is if a client actually approaches us and they say, hey, we want access to this data, because we have more than 60 million people's information in South Africa, 26 million credit profiles, there's a huge amount of data. And I think to your point, how would you know that the information is safe? There's 2 things that we do. First of all is we audit the end clients that are requiring access, along with the usual purpose for which they are accessing information. Secondly is I am legally, well not me, my team is legally required to go and audit those end clients to make sure and to do spot checks on how they're using the data, where the information is stored. And there's a whole bunch of checks and balances that we get audited on in return, again, a couple of times a year. So even if we do have your information, we are checked very regularly by the information regulator, by the bureaus, and by the national credit regulator themselves. So it's not just a free-for-all. Your information is safe.
Awesome. Yeah, right here, Jacob.
Oh, thank you. I've been missed and I'm sitting on the front row. Hi, everyone. I've got 2 questions, one with regards to AI, one with regards to facial recognition. With regards to AI, we already know that AI is already assisting a lot of us in terms of reporting, in terms of profiles, in terms of job description, KPIs, and performance. It gives us all this information that we require. Now, with regards to the CV, how well can you assure us that the CV that the candidate has put in place is not the one that has been developed or designed by AI?
Is your question, the candidate is uploading the CV in the AI, how do we know that CV was not built by the AI?
Yes.
That's a very good question.
Very good question. Okay, good luck, Joel.
I think it's got a relatively simple answer. So it comes
Just
back
speak up,
to
Joel. Speak up.
the context that you give these AI models and bots. So there's something called GPT-0. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's to detect if content, no, the 0 component, where it's like to detect if it's been generated, if the text has been generated. And then I think more so what becomes the most important value add in the equation is actually verifying people not just based on their competence and the tests, etc., but through software like what the Good People company offer. That would be my recommendation. But
that
yes, it could
comes
technically
after
flag it.
It assesses the CV. So
It
it's
could
still not
technically
authentic.
flag it as it's but the LinkedIn post was generated with AI. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
to say.
It's a good
double-edged
question.
sword there.
Very, very good question.
And then the second question is with regards to facial recognition when you do your assessment. Still, how sure are you that your assessment is 100% correct? Because at this stage, with some of the banks, you do your facial recognition, and once you change the hairstyle or the makeup, it doesn't recognize your face. You have to write, yes, I
How
have an
much?
experience in that.
So,
And
just
I'm
so that
asking
everybody
that
can hear.
question.
Sorry,
So
JK.
it doesn't. So how sure are we that the information you have there is?
Yeah. The question is, in the facial recognition side of things, if you change your makeup, your face can change. Is that what you said, right? So how are we sure that it's the face? What about your
It's-
makeup, JK? No.
So we actually had a situation last week. So we work with one of the major finance companies in South Africa. So nobody sees us. It's their brand, their logos. Person looks into the camera, fails the biometric 4 times, right?
fails 4 times. So then obviously, writes back to the consultant. Turns out there had been a massive change in the person's lifestyle. They had lost 40 kilograms. The ID book picture that we had was 11 years old. So the picture had home affairs. So it's never ever 100% fail safe. The second scenario we have is in a lot of instances we actually end up with candidates. If you're sitting at home and you've got curlers in your hair or you haven't got makeup, nobody's going to take a selfie for a job application. Like, come on, it kind of like goes out the window. So we've built in a fail-safe mechanism, and it says, do you want to try another way? And we actually ask you questions about yourself based on the information that we hold. So it's, have you ever lived at this address? Has this ever been your telephone number? Have you ever used this email address? And then if you pass those questions, we will let you through and not have you take a selfie if you don't feel good at that particular point.
Guys, we need to get to more questions. So if you have follow-ups, please, as I said earlier, connect with the guests individually. There were hands there. Did you also? I'm sorry? Okay.
Question. So I've got a twin sister, right? And usually when she comes to my house, she cannot unlock my phone and I can unlock her. So how do you? She can. So when I take off my glasses and I have a phone on, we're identical, so I can open her phone. So in those instances, I can't make it for the assessment. How does a company then make sure that Klangelani does not take Diane's test?
Well, first of all, I think we should have a flag for identical twins in South Africa. Second thing is we have a fail-safe in terms of a fingerprint. I actually had a meeting today with a company for fingerprint readers. So we won't only rely on your face. And there's a second thing called it's like a protection service that you can actually apply for if your ID has been stolen. Because what we're now concerned about is we've had more than 60 million people's profiles stolen. So all of your information is available on the dark web. Your information is available for sale. We know this. So what now happens is if your ID picture, as an example, is being sold, how do we know that people are not creating an AI bot using all of these fancy tools and actually using that to pass your biometric? And these are the types of things that we're now looking at. So you actually have something called protective registration, which then prevents people from using your ID to apply for a home loan, to apply for vehicle finance, or any other thing. So I'd actually recommend, if you guys are not on the protective registration, definitely have a look at it and get yourself registered in order to prevent twin sisters or brothers or lookalikes from actually trying to get through biometric. We've had one instance, we've had one instance in the last year where a person managed to get through on a fake picture and we stopped them later in the process. So we did pick it up, but not on the initial biometric. So people do get through, but that's on more than 1 million applications. So it's very rare.
All right, guys, I want to, anybody else has got a question for JK? Maybe after we concluded the Q&A, we make like a little focus group here for JK. And we can maybe do some shared learning because maybe the questions are similar. Are there any questions from the audience for Attract Screen Interview? Yes, Mornay, and then you.
Thanks, Fran. So my question is for Kyle on the attraction part. So I really liked what you said about how marketers have to solve the problem of getting the customer to come to the product and how we need to solve the problem of getting the candidate to come to the position. But I think the one difference would be that when you're selling a product, you can sell to 1,000 customers, but we usually only want to hire one candidate. And I'm wondering about that bias it brings to the hiring manager where we say our candidate avatar is a 30 to 45-year-old male with these characteristics, and then the hiring manager has avatar, and then a female 25 to 27 years comes to the interview, and then we say, no, it doesn't fit the avatar, and then we discriminate based on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's based on how well you do your Model 10. So obviously Model 10 is the basis of it. Obviously the more data you get, the more accurate the answer is going to be. So I think within that you have to obviously be very careful of biases, 110%. But I think it's up to your discretion. I think the gender is one of the data points that you have of many. So I think that's going to be up to the hirer's discretion on how they do that. But I think you have to be aware of the biases. to answer your question about how similar they are, it is with marketers marketing products. It depends on the scale of the business. Obviously, if you have one or two products and you have a focus group, obviously you'll be going for that, and it'll be very focused. If you have multiple products, well, then you're gonna have multiple avatars. So that's 100%. To come back to it, I think it's how well you do your Model 10, how good your data points are, and I think you have to just be aware of the biases that are there. But like I said, that's one of the many, hopefully, data points that you essentially get there. But I hope that answered the question. Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yep. Good.
Okay, so my question is for you, Francois. It's not really to do with any of the tech stuff that you discussed, but it's because you're a CEO and a founder, so you might be able to relate to this question. So when you are running a startup or you're starting a startup and you're a young entrepreneur, the budget is limited, the negotiation leverage that you have with people is very limited. There's a bunch of things that's very limited. So what are some tips of people that you should be hiring in that season of your business? Because it's very different when you're a startup and when you're a big company like Absa Bank that has, the money in the world, they can negotiate, they can do a bunch of stuff. And then also speaking to employees that's in a generation where, I don't like the word entitlement, but it is a thing that comes up. People are like, ooh, if this job doesn't fit this, then I don't want it. So how, as a startup entrepreneur, how do you navigate those things?
Sure. Great question. Yeah, I'm good. I think I can only reflect on our journey. So there might be various entrepreneurs and founders in the audience that might have a different strategy. For me and for us back then, it was understanding what is required for us to just make it through year one. There is ambiguity, there's uncertainty, there's fear, there is trying to establish product market fit, there is not a marketing budget. So characteristics on the one end, so attributes, tenacity, hustle, do whatever it takes, be really curious, work hard, like those things were really important for us. But then on the other end, to have seriously competent people in 3 or 4 roles that we knew are the mechanics to get this business going. So our COO as an example, we knew we needed Farron. Farron is here. We knew, and everybody in Wamly is important, of course everybody's gonna, but Farron, we knew this is a tech company. There's Farron. We knew this is a tech company and we need to seriously pull a lot of systems together, and we need a systems guru with those characteristics. For those of you who know the story, I have good qualities, but I'm also very aware of my development areas, and so I knew I needed someone like Marnus. So Marnus Broodryk is my business partner. I read his book, I saw him in the lounge, I approached him, not with the idea to woo him to join me, but eventually we became friends, and I knew, okay, well, if this video tool is going to succeed, there are elements in me that I don't have, which he does, and we complement each other. So having a very good understanding of what the business, the logo requires first, and then trying to find characteristics and specific set of skills in the beginning. But that's just the start. Then from there, momentum grows. Everybody doesn't have the founder's mindset of, I'll do whatever it takes. And then clear expectations, responsibilities, job roles, needs. And so job analysis is now a thing in Wamly, but we're 17 people. But if I don't profile the job with my team and really understand what is the customer success manager going to do as opposed to the business development guy, not everybody is going to be hired based on all these characteristics. So as the business scales and we grow, there is a maturity that kicks in. But in the very beginning, attitude and skills. And we're going to do this, a mindset. I think mindset is super important. I don't know how relevant that was for the entire crowd, but thanks for the question. I've never been asked that. Who else? Potlale? You have a question? Okay. Yeah?
That gets created. And I know that initially the question was around, one of the first things is you kind of sample 10 best people in your organization. My question is, if your organization somewhat looks already similar, how do you then create an avatar with diversity in mind when you know that that's something that we should all kind of be thinking about and gearing towards? The avatar is not going to replicate what you don't feed it, basically.
Yeah.
So it's not going to give you something outside of what you already have in the organization.
Fantastic.
So that was the one question
Great
I wanted
comment.
to ask.
I think that's why when Carl and I had our little interview, I said it's not just about the person, but also what the job requires. Super, super important. Never forget the basic fundamentals of job analysis. What we do with that document, how dynamic it is, how it gets updated and used is a different conversation, but we have to start with what the job requires. What I do like about that thinking of the avatar is that we are trying to zoom into some sort of persona. Whether it's race or gender, or that's not necessarily the point, but rather that passion, dreams, and desire part. That really stood out for me. But is that predicting job success? You know, if I'm hiring for a sales guy, is Brian predicting job success? And I'm not breaking your avatar, Carl. I'm saying, like, we really need to think about what does the job require, and then also, how does this person out there look for that job? Yeah.
I used to do quite a bit of work in the recruitment space many, many years ago. And just to the point, you know, when you talk about liking Brian, the guys at RMB, I'm not sure how many RMB group, F&B and everybody else is here, but they found a clear correlation. At the time, there was a guy called Gregory Guller. I'm not sure how many of you guys know Greg. He's like one of South Africa's leading quants. But they found a correlation in hobbies and people's particular skill sets. And for quants specifically, they found that people who betted on horse racing were excellent quants. And that was part of the recruitment strategy. I'm not sure if we can actually create some kind of a regression analysis for that here, but it would be quite interesting to see.
Okay, guys, 2 more questions, and then please find whoever you want to talk to afterwards. There's a hand right there.
I was just curious if Wamly plans to open up its AI for other people to build on top of what you guys have built.
Okay, is Wamly planning on opening up its AI? So firstly, I said it in the intro, what we displayed here is that me? What we displayed here is not ours, okay? We're not sampling our products. The idea was thought leadership, excitement of what exists out there. The reason why we asked you to scan the QR code, and by the way, I have a winner, I'm going to announce you right now, is to understand what you are looking for, what you are struggling with, what is keeping you awake at night. So our development roadmap, and I've said this for 3 years, is built on product market fit. What does that mean? What is going to solve your problem? What is going to help you sleep better? So there's nothing to open up tomorrow except for what I showed you in the actual Wamly right now, but we are on a journey. And as I said earlier, ignoring AI now is not a clever thing to do. Last question. I saw, yes, there, at the very back. Okay. There's a radical honesty, which is our first value. Thank you for that. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Quick answer, Jacob.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to close off. Allow me 1 more minute. From everybody here at Wamly, thank you so much to my guests. Can we give them a hand of applause? I hope that at least once this evening you had an aha moment. You thought of something in your organization that you can do differently. I hope that ultimately you leave here feeling our love and that we want to provide you with value, because that's the business that we are. We don't see ourselves as a technology company only. We absolutely see ourselves as talent advisors, wanting to go on a journey with all of you, fostering deep personal relationships. We absolutely mean that. We are planning our 4th event at the end of this year, where we're aiming to bring in 1,000 delegates. So it will not be at the Tryst, 1,000 delegates. Please come back. And then my WeBot winner, the phone locked. All right, I really hope you are still here. Bianca Breed. Dankie, such a pleasure. Dankie. All right, so food and drinks at the bar. I don't know if the bar is still open, the tab. If not, then maybe just, it's closed down, fantastic. As you said earlier. Please network, take a photo, meet someone new, come and ask JK more difficult questions about facial recognition, engage with Kyle, with Joel, with myself, anybody within the Wamly team. Drive home safe. Please remember to go up there, and we will be sending you one mail tomorrow morning just asking you for feedback about the event. We promise to not spam you more. Thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.